Hello everyone. Today this tutorial is going to show you how to maneuver WDS and handle what I think are the most critical functions of WDS. Now before we do all that, you need a modern server OS like 2019 or 2016 or even 2012 R2 can do this. You need a client operating system like Windows 10, Professional, Enterprise, Education, whatever you're licensed for. You need the Windows 10 ADK kit, which you can download from Microsoft. You need the Windows PE add-on, which you can also get from Microsoft. And any driver kits that may come with the computers that you're going to be imaging. Now, HP, Dell, Lenovo all do have driver packages available for their business-grade machines. So, next steps you want to do, which I've already did before starting this video, I installed Server 2019. I applied a static IP to my servers. I installed a real web browser. I strongly recommend you do that. You can debate what a real web browser is, but most of us here that are in IT can agree that Internet Explorer is not a real browser. As you can see, Firefox is the browser of choice today. Now, if you went ahead and downloaded these tools like I did for previous attempts to make this video, then you may not need the web browser right away. But if you didn't, that's where the web browser comes into play. You also need an AD service account for WDS or MDT, which I already did create that in a previous video, but I will go through how to do that. So now that we got that all out of the way, first thing you want to do isn't actually install WDS. So you want to go to your server manager if it's not open already. And let it do its thing. You want to add roles and features. Role-based or feature-based is fine. Select your server. And then you want to check off Windows deployment services, add whatever it needs to add. Next, don't need to install any other features, so it skipped right over on me. Role services, install them both, and hit install. And this will take just a minute to do. And your install's finally done, so go ahead and close this out. You can close out of the server manager at this point. We will no longer need it. So next thing you want to do is get your installs out of the way. I have them saved onto a folder already, along with all of the other things I'm going to use. Next thing you want to do is the deployment toolkit. This is where you're going to do most of your work. Go ahead, hit next. Gotta accept the license terms and agreements. If you want to read through that whole thing on your own time, more power to you. Keep the defaults. Next. Up to you if you want to join the Customer Experience Improvement Program. I selected no. It's a test environment. Who cares? And then go ahead and hit install. And it's already done. And then that ADK setup is the next one you want to install. This one is just taking a little bit to do. And you will, I want to point out one thing here, if I can show you. The application itself is 2 megs. It's good. This one's asking for 1.1 gigs of space. This, along with the PE add-on kit, will install or download programs from the internet. So if you have a slow DSL connection, like on my very first attempt to do this, you're going to be waiting a while. If you have a 100 meg internet connection, cable, fiber, that type of thing, these installs shouldn't take too terribly long, maybe just a few minutes. I'm going to hit no to this. Accept the license agreement. I keep all the defaults here. If there's any valid reason why we should be checking this, please tell me constructively in the comments, and then just go ahead and hit install. Okay, so the Assessment and Deployment Kit, or the ADK, is now installed. It took just 2 minutes. Next thing you want to do is go to the WinPE setup. And same thing with this one. The original file was a little bit over a megabyte. This one is 5.5 gigs, so if you have a slower internet connection, this is going to take a while. Anywho, hit next. License agreement. And go ahead and install. And the Windows PE environment is officially installed. So next thing you want to do is actually going to be an AD. So open up. So once you have your AD controller opened up, or Active Directory users and computers, go ahead and make a service account. I'm not actually going to get into making a service account, but mine is called MDT in this case. And pretty much standard procedure, other than make sure the password never expires. You may even want to check this user cannot change password in the off chance that somebody tries to be clever. I'll go ahead and apply to that. And there's a lot of WDS installations where this particular service account is a member of the domain admin's account. My general advice on that is don't do it. Just don't do it. Just do the work to give it the minimal access and be done with it. You hate for your network or servers to be compromised because of a service account that got compromised. In my case, the member of tab is just domain users. So nothing special there. And many of the IT folks are going to be squawking if they don't know how to do this is, well, a domain user can't join a domain, which is correct, as is they cannot. So to correct this, go to the view, make sure advanced features is checked, right click on your domain, and you go to properties, go to the security tab. Mine's already got special permissions due to various attempts at this. But in case you don't, you go over to the advanced on the bottom. You go to add. Select the principal. Type in the name of your account. And I believe the only thing we had to check in here, doesn't show it here, is this modify permissions, and make sure that the applies to this object and all other descendant objects is checked. Just gotta verify that real quick. If all those things are checked, that should be pretty straightforward. Press OK. Don't remember this process 100%, so I'm gonna take a quick look at some cheat sheets and I take that back. There's actually, you don't check this box at all. It's a good thing about this channel, it is largely unscripted, so there'll be some kinks in the armor here. The boxes you want to check will be these create and delete objects. It's quite a ways down on the left column. Since I did all that already, I'm going to cancel. The next piece of this that you want to do will be again for your service account. But when you go to this applies to, it is going to be descendant computer objects is the tab you want. And there's going to be a handful of things you're going to want to check in this one too. Like this read all properties, write all properties, the third and fourth options down on the left column. Read and modify permissions, that looks like it's the seventh and eighth options. And then you want to go to the right column. And I already see one of the options as soon as it decides to scroll. Change password. Reset password. Validate right to DNS hostname. And validate right to service principal name. Once you have all those checked, go ahead and press OK. And then apply, and then OK. OK to this. And you're done with Active Directory of users and computers. So now go back to your WDS box. And go find the Microsoft Deployment Workbench. This is where the vast majority of your work is actually going to be done in it. It's going to take a little bit to load on this one for whatever reason, but that's all good. Then you want to hit the deployment shares. Once you are determined that there's nothing there, go to the right and go to New Deployment Share. You can keep the default path, that should be okay. The default share name is good. You can name this whatever you want. I'm keeping the default. And I'm going to uncheck all these for this exercise. And then finish, or next. This shouldn't take too terribly long. Okay, so it looked like about 30 seconds to a minute to do that. If you have a faster machine, it'd probably be considerably less. But next thing you want to do is give your service account permissions to this folder. So you want to go to the C drive, or whatever drive your share is on. Right-click your deployment share. And go to Properties. You go, first thing you do, you go to the Sharing tab, Advanced Sharing, Permissions, add your service account, give it full rights. Apply and OK. You're going to go to the Security tab and you're going to basically do the same. Apply and OK. Alright, so load this folder, this prereq folder, because I will need it sooner rather than later. And if you, in my case, since the ISO is here and I'm going to need it really soon, I am just going to double click this to open it. And then I'll just go hit the back button to go back to that folder, minimize it for now. So now you want to open up that deployment share, drop down until you have this set of folders. The next thing in play here, first thing is first, you need an operating system. So go to the right and import one. I do the full set. You have to browse to your source directory, which is the ISO I just opened. Even if you know the drive letter of your source, you actually have to browse to it. I found that it doesn't work if you just type it in. But once you have that, it's next. If you got your ISO from the Volume Licensing Service Center, it may show up as Windows 10 Education. That is okay. I'm going to shorten this title though to Windows 10. And then we're going to hit next. And this one may take a few minutes depending on the speed of your system. And we are imported, and with this ISO it looks like there are several Windows 10 Enterprise, Education, and Professionals, and there even seems to be some Pro Education, Pro Workstation. I don't know what they all mean. I'm not concerned about that for this video. And you could remove the unnecessary ones, but I am not going to for this exercise. The next critical piece is a task sequence. So you want to hit up on the right, go New Task Sequence. Just give this a shortened name for the task sequence ID. Next. Standard client task sequence is good for day-to-day stuff, so I'm going to hit next. I'm just going to work with Windows Pro for now. I'm not going to specify a product key. If you have a KMS server, I don't believe you specify it here either. If you have the multiple activation key, then you'd hit the option in the middle. And next, you want to put in both a full name and an organization. Just going to go with the Windows user. Specify an admin password. This will cut down headaches down the road. And finish. And it should take a few seconds like it did there. Okay. There's one thing I want to show you is installing .NET Framework 2.0 to 3.5. There's too many applications out there that require that to basically ignore it, especially if you're in a bigger organization. So to do that, I'm going to right click your new task sequence and go to Properties. And you go hit the task sequence. So first thing you want to do is select custom tasks. Then you want to go to add. And this is where it gets a little... This is one other thing I may have to review. Maybe it's in settings. Oh, set task sequence variable. That's the task you want to do. So first, we'll give it a name, Windows source. That is, if I can spell correctly. And for the value, you have to point it to your deployment share Windows source. I cheated and I copied and pasted and made a note of it on previous attempts. So that's what I'm going to do here. Where do you get this name? I will show you quick after I do an apply. You go to the deployment share, operating systems, Windows 10, sources, and then your SXS folder. So basically whatever's in here. So you put that environment variable, I believe it's called deployment share, and then you can copy and paste this section into that line, and that will get you the correct thing every time. Since that is done, the next thing we want to do is actually install that task. So I'd like to do that right before I install applications. Despite where it says up here to install applications, I put it right before the scheduled tasks. or custom tasks rather. So install roles and features, and just do the .NET framework on the very top. If you want to add other services at this time that are pertinent to whatever you're doing, this is the place to do it. And press OK. Now we're going to do a couple applications. So I hit the applications folder. And I did Google Chrome and Notepad++. So we'll go application with source files. And every application will be different on how you install it. Some of them cannot be silently installed, but most of them can. If you can do that, that is ideal. You notice I have each and every application in its separate folder. If I were to select this whole prereq folder, it'll copy everything in there, and that just takes up a lot of space really quick. And go next. And since this is one of those things that I did get the sequence of before I made this video, helps if I can type. Here's our applications text file. And this will be available through the Google Chrome's documentation. Now, you'll notice that in my syntax it does quote an MSI folder, or MSI file rather. So the regular download that you go to Google Chrome's webpage, that's not going to work. You'll have to go get the standalone enterprise installer. I believe if you just Google that term, you'll get it. So once you have that, you hit next and do your copy. And we're going to do the same for Notepad++ because it's good to have a couple things to show. Same drill. Go find your file. Now you'll notice there is an option to move the files to the deployment share instead of copying them. I'm leaving that unchecked. Just I don't like the idea of moving stuff, and stuff can always be deleted later. So I'll go next. That name's fine. I gotta go back to my cheat sheet here. And the Notepad++ makes it real easy to do a silent install. There you go. Perfect. And that's done. Next thing you want to do is there's some rules you can put in there to WDS to automate things a little bit. So we run a right click on this deployment share in the workbench and go properties. We don't have any x86 stuff in there, so I'm going to uncheck that in mine. If you have it, keep it checked. And I'm going to head over to rules, and I did cheat a little bit here as well. I did copy and paste from other applications here. There's a whole list of stuff here. I'm just gonna copy and paste this whole thing on in here. At least to that point anyway. Where and why will it go? Maybe I could load up properties. Okay, there we go. And I'm just going to wipe everything out of there. And you just put a company name in there like I did there. Not a requirement. And this little syntax here, the computer name, this will grab the last 5 characters of the serial number of the computer. Skip capture, no. Since we have an admin password defined, I'm not worried about it. Product key, I'm not worried about. Computer backup, I'm not worried about. We don't need to do the roles. In this case, the BitLocker, I'm not worried about. Time zone, we can skip because it's already selected. And this is where your service account will come into play. And this is, there's a step when you select whether there's a work group or to join to a domain. That's where these credentials come into play. So I think we have everything pretty much under control here, so I'm going to apply. We'll edit the Bootstrap file, and we're going to want to add some syntax to that as well. Nothing of real significance will be put in here. This is well, hold on here before I do that. I gotta change the username. And I messed up the... I cannot type today. So now we'll copy and paste that. What this will do is this will, once WDS comes up, it'll join automatically with these credentials. If you don't want that, you can leave this blank. And yes, I know I did indeed miss a step here. So once you have everything in place, you go apply, press OK. So now next step is you want to update this deployment share. And this is critical, because this is actually when our next step in WDS, this is actually going to create a boot image that we're going to need to copy over. But for now, we'll just optimize the boot process. Nothing doing there. And this one's going to take a little bit. And we are finished with this step. And you can read through all this if you want. I'm personally not going to, so I'm just going to go finish on that. So now we will actually do the part of the exercise that requires WDS itself. And there'll be some light setup with this as well, as you will see shortly. Just click on your server object, right click, configure server. And next. Integrate to Active Directory. I keep the default install. I've never had a problem with keeping this on the C drive, so I'm going to continue with that. Respond to all client computers. There are some organizations will put the imaging server on their own network. If your VLAN off, that last option shouldn't be a big deal. I'm going to uncheck this option, because it's going to ask you to do something you don't need to do. The next thing you want to do is hit the boot images folder. And right click in the white space and go add boot image. And we're going to go to our newly created image that we did in the deployment workbench. It's in the deployment share folder. And I click too fast again. You go to the boot folder. And this Light Touch PE Win64 is the one we're going to use. This is the one I just created. For whatever reason, it just doesn't want to select today. Go next. Default name is fine. And the file, this file itself is about 300 megs, I believe. WDS will actually extract it. It'll be about a 2 gig file by the time it's all said and done. It shouldn't take more than a couple minutes. Yeah, actually just a few seconds. So now you have that. So in theory, we should be ready to image. I don't have an actual physical computer, so I'm just gonna roll with the Hyper-V that I have here, my test environment. If you do this, then use the Generation 2 hardware. This is a test environment, so it's not going to be pretty. Install an operating system later, and finish. You will have to be fairly fast with this one if you're doing it the Hyper-V way, or really any other way, because there's going to be a boot or press any key to boot that comes up. If I remember correctly, I may have even done it too slow already. No, nope. Okay, so press enter for network boot service, and away we go. So far, so good. Now, if you made the same mistake that I did in the first attempt at this, you'll get a blue background, and it'll ask you for a username and password. What I did the first time around is I took the default boot WIM from the Windows 10 ISO. If you have Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, things look a little bit better. It's processing through that file we modified earlier. And it did not ask for a username and password, so it was able to connect, so we have one part is set up correctly. So we go next. Now Hyper-V doesn't play so nicely with the serial number, so I'm just going to call it test WDS for now. I'm going to select both my applications. And with this, you can select as little or as many that are needed. I only have 2. They don't take long. And away we go. And it's going to do all the fun stuff. It's going to partition your hard drive. So if it is a physical computer, back up your data if there's anything of value on it before you do this step. Otherwise, you will lose everything. There's one thing I didn't cover. If you had drivers, this would be the place where they would install them. But looks like it's trying to apply the image, and once I get a percent number, then I'll go show you real quick and do a real quick show on how to insert drivers. Okay, so this will take a few minutes, so I'm going to minimize this window. Go back to our WDS server. So if you do have drivers, that's going to be in the deployment tool bench. You go to out-of-box drivers, and I like to create folders for whatever computers I may have, and I'm just using some off the top of my head here, so I'm not sure if some of these are going to be super up to date or not. And for the Lenovo fans, I certainly did not forget about you, so I am going to make a folder for that. I think they are very good machines, but they're a lot more expensive, it seems like, than their counterparts every time I go look for them, so I haven't had one in a while. But anywho, so now we got each computer listed, so you go open your folder, and it's very similar to the applications. You create a folder where you want them to go, like our Google Chrome folder. You just make a special folder for, like, the one I clicked on is the Dell 7050. And for now I'm going to cancel this as I don't have any drivers. We'll see how we're doing here. And this one's making its way over right now. So once we get past this point, I will continue the video from there with the magic of video editing. Okay, we're just about done with the first part of this. After it gets done with the install operating system portion of our imaging, this will reboot shortly. I believe it does a couple other things with scripts, which we're going to find out together. Now we're about to find out if I did everything right. That's the beauty of this channel. Being unscripted, you get to point and laugh at my failures. Oh well, sometimes you gotta fail in order to learn from life. And shortly after, it'll say getting devices ready and the usual Windows 10 getting ready stuff. It shouldn't take any longer than setting up any other computer you get from the store. Maybe. So oh, there we go. Now we're getting devices ready and getting ready. So it looks like it says it's no longer getting ready, so we'll try this again and we'll see where it goes from here. It probably was sitting on that for probably a good 5 minutes, so I'm not sure if it's an issue with my WDS install or there's a severely underpowered VM coming into play here. And now it does the normal Windows 10 setup. I'm not sure if we can get rid of this part or not during the WDS. I know it's possible to get rid of all that eye candy stuff where it says Windows is doing its thing, but not sure if it's possible in WDS. You know for sure that it is, tell me in the comment section. And I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, it's going to do the eye candy stuff now, so hopefully this won't take terribly long. And we got past the beauty stuff. So now this next step will, if you did a backup, I think it does this here too. This part will install the applications. And this should install .NET Framework 3.5. Usually only takes a couple minutes to install the .NET Framework 3. Even on something as disadvantaged as this particular Hyper-V host is right now. I guess it's taken a very long time. I don't remember it taking this long, but... taking a very long time. Also using 100% of the CPU and 92% of the disk. That is not going to help our case in any way. Not sure what's using all that. Oh, still 98, 96. Oh, there we go. Did not see it install Chrome, so that is not a good sign. Yeah, 2 errors, so let's see what that's about. So yeah, it looks like just some stuff I have to research. And I also did notice that it did try to install the applications before .NET Framework, so I'll have to mess with that. But anywho, outside of a couple little errors like what we're seeing here, this is pretty much how you build a WDS box. I'll probably do another short video on the retry of this reimage and see where we go. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or constructive criticism, feel free to leave them in the comments section. And thank you for joining me on this ride with some bumps in it.